Hello everyone, my name is Nathan and today it's time for another episode of Let's Make a Game. Today I would like to accomplish something totally different than what we were working on previously, just, to kind of switch it up to get more stuff in the game. So today's topic, as you might have judged from the title of this episode, is going to be to add some wildlife. And of course we're gonna do that with some basic functionality, however we have to create the sprites first, I would say. So let's actually make a new category for this. We're gonna call this wildlife. Yeah, that should be alright. Let's create our first sprite, which is going to be the sprite sheep. Yes, I want sheep and wolves first of all, and I want the wolves to rip apart the sheep. It feels good to make a game. Anyways, let's create a new graphic, and I think one tile might be a little bit too small for the animals, so we're gonna go with 2 tile-sized animals. Now let's make the first sprite for the sheep, and as per usual I'm going to keep this probably very simple, and also I'm so sorry, you're actually totally free to make me better graphics if you want to, but these are going to be my sheep for the time being. So let's maybe also give those a nice color, and then we are going to copy this over actually for all direction it can walk into. So that means copy this bad boy over, we're gonna go to the transform category and we want to rotate it around 45 degrees, and of course only with this single image here. Okay, there we go. Now we're gonna do this over and over again, rotate this time around 90 degrees, there we go. Then for the image 3 we have to go 135 degrees. Image 4 will have to be rotated around 180 degrees, and so on and so forth. And there we go, I have all possible directions the sheep can walk into. And now of course we also need a dying animation of some sort, or I don't know. We're just gonna make a blank thing for this, and maybe we kind of draw an exploding sheep ball, I don't know, something like this. Yeah, that seems about right to me. Let's give this a nice sheepy color, there we go. That is definitely most beautiful, and I think we can leave it at that for the time being. We're of course also gonna create the same thing for the wolves. So we need sprite wolves, or just wolf. Edit that bad boy. This is also going to be 64 by 64. Let me quickly make all of the same sprites without the exploding animations. I'll be right back. And there we go, all of the sprites for the wolves are done. And at this point, I want to mention once again, these are placeholders. I don't want to spend hours just to make it good looking, for that I could download any sprites from the internet. Also, I'm not very graphically talented. I know how to do a few things, but this doesn't represent my state of mind, okay? I just need something to represent our objects. Functionality comes first, and yes, if I have to draw a quick wolf, it might look like an alien bug. However, with that out of the way, let's continue on our journey. Obviously, we're gonna need objects that correspond with those. So we're gonna create another wildlife group, and we shall create these 2 objects. Of course, object sheep, which is gonna have the sprite of the sheep. There we go. And we can probably duplicate this, change the sprite to wolf, and we want to say object wolf. Alright, now of course we need a bunch of scripts. So what shall we do? I guess we're gonna create another group here as well, just to keep it ordered. The group is, as per usual, wildlife, and we're gonna create a script, actually several ones. The first one is gonna be a script, let's say spawn animals. We need to get them into the room in some way or the other. So script spawn animals, then we're also gonna create another script which is gonna define the movement of the sheep and the wolf. Let's make a more generic script first, maybe animal movement, that could be a thing. No, let's actually call it differently. This is gonna be more specific. Let's call it idle movement instead. Okay, then I will need a script to initiate all of the variables, which we're gonna call animal variables, I guess. I mean, it's a start, right? So let's create one last script, which is gonna be the script wolf movement, because I want the wolves to actually attack the sheep. That is going to be my goal. So with these scripts out of the way, I would say we can actually get right into it. However, we should probably assign the scripts to our objects here. And again, we should make a parent object for this since we are applying similar scripts. But that is usually a step I like to take later on when I know everything is functioning together. So let's of course add a create event. We're also going to create a step event, and last but not least, I think, yeah, for the sheep I'm going to create an alarm event. So this is kind of going to be the destroyer of the sheep. Once the wolf catches the sheep, the alarm is going to wait a little bit for the dead corpse and stuff, and then the sheep is going to disappear. You know, very simple to begin with. So in here, I want to have, of course, all of my variables. So I guess that's going to be the animal variables on the create event. Then on the alarm event, I think we can just have a simple self-destruct. Yeah, I think this bin here, destroy instance and self. So it's just going to destroy the instance as soon as we pop this alarm. And last but not least, on the step event, we are of course going to need another script, which is the idle movement, and the wolf movement is going to be added to the wolf object as well. So let's actually do that. I think we're done with the sheep. We want to add a create event and a step event in here. No alarm event in here, because currently the wolves will not have a possibility to die. In the create event, just like before, we're gonna add the animal variables, and in the step event we now need to add two scripts, namely the idle movement and also the wolf movement. So idle movement is gonna apply to all the animals, but then we're gonna have specific scripts that are dedicated to specific animals. Great, with that out of the way, let's set up a bunch of global variables. I'm gonna make a new title here called wildlife, and we want to set a few things. For instance, the idle speed. So how fast are animals gonna walk when they idle around? Which we should maybe set to 1, maybe not too fast. Let's go 0.5. Next up, we want to set the attack speed, which obviously should be a lot faster. Let's go with 4. And last but not least, we should set the global attack range, which I'm gonna set to about 500 pixels to begin with. Yeah, I think that's gonna work out. Let's actually save this script. And next up, we want to set up the animal variable. So on the create event, what is going to be set? Okay, so in this script, I only want to set a bunch of variables that I'm gonna need later on. So I'm gonna set the idle movement to be equal to 100. And this is simply a timer. So as soon as it is 0, it will kind of switch the direction. And 100 is just, you know, a good value to begin with. It's actually going to be a random number later on in the step event. But we need to initialize this variable and give it some value. I could also start with 0, it would actually not matter. If I started with 0, the animals would begin to idle quicker, basically. The next thing we want to set is the idle direction, so you can switch directions into all 8 possible directions that you have. And we are gonna start specifically with the direction 0, which is upwards, according to our sprites. Next up, we're gonna set the self-killed variable to false, because the animal is not killed, and of course I'm very pessimistic. I could also have used the variable self-alive. But whatever, I'm using this one. And also we are gonna set the idle function to true, or the idle variable. All of these variables, of course, I named myself. These are not functions, it's just, you know, something that I can work with. Great, that's all I want to set up for this script. Now we're gonna move towards the idle movement. This is our main script. So this is on the step event of all the animals. And the first thing I want to do is set the image speed to 0, so we can only ever see one image. Of course, depending in which direction the animal is walking. Next up, we want to check if the animal is still alive. So we're gonna check the self-killed if that is false, and also if the self-idle is true, then we want the animal to idle. These two conditions are important. Now we want to count down with the timer we set up before. So the self-idle movement we want to set to -1. It's gonna count down, and then we want to check if the self-idle movement is smaller or equal to 0. Then we want to set a new direction. So let's define that here. Set direction. In order to set the direction, of course, we just need to do something with the idle direction that we set up before. At the moment it was 0, which is facing upwards, but we want to have a random number. So we're gonna mathematically floor it down, which means we are gonna round it down, and we want to set a random number between 0 and 15, for instance. Now, if you remember, we have 8 directions. That means some idle functionality is gonna involve that the animal is just gonna stand still. And only if we get numbers from 0 to 7, it's actually going to walk. What we also want to do is set the self-idle movement to be random to something, let's say 300. So this is basically the new timer. Anything between 0 and 300, so the movement could be either really long or really short. And then let's also say at least the minimum amount I want the animals to go into a certain direction is 20 frames. So it's gonna wait a maximum of 400 frames plus 20 frames until it is doing another action, or it could be anything in between. Great, so now that we set that up, we can finally get to the movement, and I'm gonna use a switch statement for that, which of course is gonna entail the self-idle direction. So we want to check which value came out for the idle direction. In case it is 0, then we want the image index to be also 0, because direction 0 is up and our image 0 is also up. That means in order to get up, we want to change the y coordinate minus the global idle speed that we set up in the global variables. And after that, we want to take a break. So now, in case it is number 1, we want to set the image index to also be equal to 1, but this time it is going towards the top right. That means we want to set x plus equal global dot idle speed, but also we want to set y to minus equal global dot idle speed. Because of course we're moving towards the right direction, which is plus x, but also upwards, which is minus y. And of course we need to do this for all 8 directions, so let me quickly set this up. I'm sure you got the basic gist. And there we go. I think I got all directions, cases 0 to 7, and of course cases 8 to 15, which we have in the calculations here, are just gonna be the standing still animation. However, now we need another thing. We need to actually activate the timer. So as soon as the animal is killed, we want to activate an alarm. And after the alarm has run out, the animal is going to be dead, hopefully. Where can we set this up? Probably just, outside this statement right here. So killing animation initiation. Let's say if self dot killed equals true, then we want to do something. By the way, if something is true, you could also just do that if self killed. That is the same thing. However, for me, it's easier to read for some reason if I do it like that. Anyways, we want to set the alarm 0 to be equal to, I don't know, 10 maybe? Let's just go with 1, because I'm sure 1 is gonna work. 10 might actually not work. We can fiddle around with this number. Right now we don't have a death animation anyways, we just have the exploding sheep ball. Okay, then there's one more thing to do. I want to save this and we want to go to the wolf movement. Actually, maybe before we do that, let's spawn the animals. That could be a better idea. I'm gonna go to the script first. I'm gonna do this very, very easy. I'm gonna define 2 variables called sheep amount equals to instance number, and the instance is of course object sheep. I'm also gonna say wolf amount equals instance number object wolf. So if the sheep amount is lower than 3, for instance, yeah, let's say 3, then we want to create an instance on the, let's say, random room width and random room height. Oh, spelling, Nathan, spelling. And we want to create an object sheep, of course. There we go. So we've done this very, very easily. We're also gonna spawn in a wolf. Let's say if wolf amount is smaller than 1, then we want to create an instance random room width and random room height. Object wolf. there we go. That should already do the trick. This script is actually nowhere yet. This obviously goes on my core object. There we go. We want to place this probably on our step event right here. It is a spawn animal. So, this script should actually not go there. Spawn animals is more like a regular script. So I'm gonna place this maybe here. That should be good. And now we can get it right into there. Cool, so that was important. Now let's have a look at the animals and check out if they are 3 of them and also whether or not they are idling around. So we have a sheepy right there. It's moving into the left direction. Now it's moving down, now it's moving up, and you can see it's doing that in irregular intervals. And it's also looking into the right direction, except before, wasn't it? There was something wrong with it, wasn't there? And now it's in one of the numbers that are no direction at all, so it was waiting. Ah, okay, the left downwards direction seems to be faulty for some reason. Let's check that out. I think the mistake might be here. Shouldn't that be like minus and minus? This is the direction that goes towards the top left corner. I think this might have been the mistake, but you know, wasn't too harsh of a mistake. Let's go ahead and program the wolf attack movement. Now, this is not going to be too much of a complicated script. We're gonna do this very easily. What we want to check out is where the heck is the nearest sheep. And for that, we are gonna rely on our instance nearest function, and we want to check our own coordinates and of course for object sheep. So now we already know which object exactly is the nearest from our wolf. So now that we know which instance to address, we also want to know how far is it away from us. And for that, the GameMaker also has a functionality, namely distance to object. This is a great thing. So we want to, of course, check the distance for the nearest sheep. And we want to say if that is smaller than the global attack range, which we, I think, set to 500. I'm not sure. Let's check that out. Attack range, yeah, 500. So if that is the case, then of course what we want is the self-idle thing to go to false. So the wolf isn't idling around anymore. It's actually gonna focus on the freaking sheep. Now we're going to use another functionality that I'm going to introduce in this video, which is the move towards point functionality, and I love this one. What we want, of course, is to specify the x and y coordinates of the nearest sheep that we stored in this variable earlier, and we want to also set the speed itself to the global attack speed. So this is basically just the pixels per frame it's going to move, which at the moment I think is 4. But we are only going to move towards this point, of course, if the nearest sheep is actually near enough. If you get my basic drift. So if all sheep are further than 500 pixels away, it's just gonna idle. So now that we are moving towards the sheep, we of course want to check for a collision. So we say if instance plays xy nearest sheep, then we want the sheep instance to go into the exploding image thing and then die. So let's say with nearest sheep, and if you remember, everything we write in this function here is gonna be as if it is on the sheep itself. So we can say image index should equal 8. Yeah, that was not 7. And also self killed equals true. And if you remember, this will initiate the alarm. Great. However, if there is no sheep in range, then we want something else to happen. So we have to add this right here. Else, we want the self-idle thing to go to true. And also we want to set the speed to 0. Otherwise it's gonna, remain in this attack speed thing. This is actually an important distinction. You are not moving it coordinate by coordinate, but you are assigning it a certain speed. So we have to get rid of it after we are done with the movement. Great. Okay, let's see this in the working. I don't think I've made any mistakes. We shall figure out in just a second. And there we go. Okay, so the wolves are also idling. Now I wonder, 500 pixels, how far is this? And hopefully we will figure out if it works or not. Yeah, sheep, you have to move up. Come on. 500 pixels might not be enough. to test it out at least. 500 pixels might be enough in the end, because there's gonna be enough encounters between wolves and sheep. So maybe to test it out, I would say we're gonna set the global variables to 1000. So now the wolves are gonna attack as of a distance of 1000 pixels. Come on, do me the favor, people are watching. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that was 1000 pixels. It's going for the sheep. And yeah, we saw the explodey animation. Oh man, it rips all the sheep apart. Of course, the sheep are being respawned as they die, but now there's no sheep in the immediate vicinity, so the wolf should go back to idling, please. Yeah, there we go. Okay, he's idling again, and of course, somewhere on the map, we should again have 3 sheep. There's 1, 2, and where's the third one? Oh, maybe it actually ran off the map. Yeah, look at that. This is something we haven't prevented from happening yet. However, I'm pretty happy with the progress of today's episode. We're gonna have to wrap it up at this point. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed my drawing skills and everything. Have a great time, and hopefully I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Bye bye.